Good evening, everybody. Welcome to At Lafayette Live for Monday, May 12th, 2025. I hope your week is off to a great start, and we sure appreciate you joining us here on a Monday afternoon. I know Monday evening. I mean, the sun's up so late now at this point that I guess you could call 7 o'clock afternoon. It's definitely not like the dead of winter here in Lafayette, where it gets dark at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So I will take that. But thank you all for joining us. Drop in the chat where you're watching from. Are you here in the Lafayette area, Lafayette or West Lafayette, the Greater Lafayette area, Tippecanoe County, White County, Monticello, Frankfort, Indianapolis? Get some pretty regular viewers from Florida and Texas and California. Certainly some, I think, I was going to say ex-Boilermakers, but there's probably no such thing as an ex-Boilermaker, but Boilermakers who have gone out in the world and made their way. Some people who are thinking about sending their kids here for school, watching to find out a little more about the area. We're so honored to have you join us here. It's always great to find out where people are watching from. Give people a couple more seconds to get loaded in here. So it's definitely becoming summer. If you follow Chad Evans, and if you don't, you should go subscribe to his Substack for the latest and greatest in local weather, like you just wouldn't believe. But I think he said the hottest weather of the year is to come so far. Hottest weather of the year so far is to come later this week. We are out camping with our boys and with the scouts this weekend. It definitely was a little chilly at night in the low 40s, but absolutely beautiful during the day. Couldn't have asked for better camping weather, really. Maybe about 10 degrees warmer at night. I mean, it was certainly comfortable in the sleeping bag. It's you don't want to get out of the sleeping bag in the middle of the night if you don't have to, sort of thing. So glad you're all here watching from Lafayette. Greetings, everybody. Well, we didn't have a live stream last week because the West Lafayette City Council had their much anticipated, long-awaited meeting where they finally voted on the zoning for Site B for SK Hynix. And I don't want to talk a great deal about that. In some ways, it's the story that just won't end. In other ways, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's certainly given us a lot to talk about here on Lafayette Live, and given our neighbors and friends a lot to talk about, and things that are coming to the area. But we put out some videos on the channel over the last week talking about that meeting. So if you haven't seen those, go check out some of the latest videos from last week talking about those choices. But long story short, 6-3, the West Lafayette City Council voted yes on rezoning Site B from residential to I3, and at this point the project for SK Hynix is going to move ahead. Now they have a lot of hurdles left to go through. I mean, they have their own site planning. They have to get approval from the highway department for their plans. They have to work with IDEM on materials handling and all that sort of thing. But I think they're supposed to have shovels in the ground next year with a completion date of 28. So we are by no means done talking about this project, but we're done talking about this project for today. If you want to know more, go check out the videos that we put out last week on the channel here on living in Lafayette and the Lafayette Reel. But first up this week of new things, new business that I would like to talk about. If you're interested in the arts here in the area, and if you're not, you should be, there is a organization called the Greater Lafayette Ready Region, and they are a state-funded organization that is set up to help drive economic growth and development in regions across the state. But our region is getting ready to host a series of meetings for public input on a regional arts and culture plan. I have a background in arts and culture. We won't go too much into depth about that today, but it's READY stands for the Regional Economic Acceleration and Development Initiative. and it has support from the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. And they're going to talk about art and culture here in the region, where it currently stands, where it could go, what our community would like to see. I think this is so important, and art encompasses so many things. There are, of course, a series of large sculptures, public art downtown and around the area. Purdue is actually a home of a good bit of public sculpture. There are the Wabash walls out on Wabash and 3rd Street, and actually stretching all the way up onto 9th Street and into West Lafayette out on Sagamore now. Graffiti as art, absolutely beautiful. There is live performance. There's the Long Center and the soon-to-be opened Lafayette Theater that the Civic Theater of Lafayette will be performing in. There are, of course, the arts associated with Purdue University and Elliott Hall of Music and Purdue Convocations, Loeb Playhouse, and in addition to all the student-based organizations who present many cultural opportunities on campus. There's, of course, the student groups that perform at our local high schools, choirs and drama clubs and the such at Lafayette Geoff, well known for having a great show choir program. West Lafayette has a great choir program, and there is great performing arts at Central Catholic. So we don't lack for arts, but there could always be more. So if you would like to share your perspective on the current state of arts and culture here in our region, if you want to have a voice in figuring out what the priorities and opportunities are for future development, or if you would like to contribute your own ideas for specific projects and initiatives, you should attend one of these meetings. And there's one in each of, let's see, it's 2, 4, 6, 7 counties. So I'm going to list these off, but I also tell you that we'll link below with more information, and you can RSVP. Each meeting is going to feature light snacks and beverages, and you don't have to register, but they would like to have some idea of how many people are coming so they can have enough snacks there. The White County meeting is going to be Monday, May 19th, so a week from today, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the IU Health White Memorial Hospital. The following day, Carroll County will have their meeting, Tuesday, May 20th, from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Delphi Opera House in their banquet hall. Also on the same day, that evening, Montgomery County's meeting will be Tuesday, May 20th, 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Wabash College in the Trippett Hall, which is room 123. The following day also is a doubleheader with Fountain County hosting their meeting Wednesday, May 21st, from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. at the Fountain County Library in Covington. That evening, Wednesday, May 21st, Warren County will host their meeting from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Warren County Learning Center. And then the next day, the final set of doubleheaders, Benton County will host their meeting Thursday, May 22nd from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Fowler Theater. And finally, Thursday evening, May 22nd, the Tippecanoe County will host the final meeting of the session, 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Lafayette Public Safety Center in the public meeting rooms there. So if you're interested in arts, I really strongly encourage you to attend the meeting closest to you. Ordinarily, I would say that I will try to be at the Tippecanoe County meeting, but that is Cub Scout night for our family, so I won't be there, but I will perhaps try to attend a meeting in one of the adjoining counties, maybe White County is not too far. Carroll County is probably the closest one, and it's the Delphi Opera House, which is a fantastic performing arts location. So go check that out. And while you're checking that out, hit the like and subscribe button so that you don't miss a minute of all the videos and content that we put up here on the Lafayette Reel, much like the videos we put up last week about the West Lafayette City Council meeting. Moving on, last week, well, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about Area Plan Commission considering a new zoning plan to move some agricultural land from agricultural to select agricultural. And I think this was a little bit of a reaction to the developments around SK Hynix. I know I said we were done talking about that for the night, but look how it permeates so many things that we talk about here in the area. I won't say that it is the thing that made this a point of discussion, but it certainly weighed in on that. And what this zoning designation was going to do was basically define some zoning areas in the north and northwest part of the county, moving it from agricultural, which it is already, to select agricultural. And this has to do with things like soil quality and productivity. And it's basically making sure that we help put some barriers, some guidelines around prime farmland that is most suitable for crop production in the future. Now, could rezoning be visited again in the future? Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, guardrails, not jail bars. But it was going to affect 9,225 acres in Wabash Township and 7,158 acres in Tippecanoe Township. And the first step was that the Area Plan Ordinance Committee was going to consider it and then put it before Area Plan for comment. But there's been a little bit of pushback and some questions about where this came from and what it is they're looking to try to do on this. And some of the commissioners are talking about perhaps we should look into an opt-in for landowners as opposed to an opt-out. So they're going to put a 90-day hold on this project to solicit some input from the landowners. A number of landowners up in the area that this affects have said that they didn't get the public notice that is required by law to be sent out. And I got to say, that's not the first time that I've heard that in recent months. And as a fairly prolific user of the mail system, and I love the USPS, but we know that they have been faced with challenges over the last 5 to 10 years, some created by nature, some created by man, some created by government, or lack thereof, shall we say. I love the post office, but they definitely have had some challenges imposed upon them, so it's possible that, sometimes the mail just isn't getting through, getting lost, or at least, not getting through in a timely fashion. So, yeah, I've heard several times that people have not gotten notice of public hearings that are related to issues that have been sent to them. So, anyway, they're going to put a 90-day hold on these hearings to find out, to communicate with the stakeholders a little bit more, and I think that's a good idea. I think generally the idea of what we're talking about here is probably good. I'm a big proponent for development. There's no doubt about that. I think you can go back and watch all of my content, and nobody would mistake me for anti-development. I'm pro-development. I'm eyes firmly on the future, but I also understand that we need to protect our resources and protect what we have. I live on 5 acres, a little north of town, and I will jealously guard my 5 acres, my little slice of heaven, if you will, up here. So I get it. Ryan O'Gara, who is the Area Plan Commission Executive Director for Tippecanoe County, said, and I quote, that the idea is to get a coalition of the willing. They don't want to impose this on people. They want people who want to participate in this process. So we're going to follow along with this story in the next 90 days. So that's June, July, August, if it comes back up. And I think it will. I don't think it's dead. I'm not a fortune teller. I can't tell you the future for sure, but it feels like the sort of thing that we will talk about some more. And maybe it will pass. Maybe it won't. Maybe the landowners will be like, yes, this is for us. Maybe the landowners will be, yeah, you know what? We're good with how things are, because on balance, there's also property rights. I own this property. I can sell it. I can put a solar field on it. It's a whole other conversation that we're not going to have tonight. And we're not going to have it tonight only from the perspective of it's not on my list of things to talk about tonight. But that wraps up that story. If you haven't yet, as so many of you haven't, hit the like and subscribe button. We can go and view the stats for the number of people that watch us every week and the number of people that are subscribed to us. And there's a difference in those numbers. So just hit the number, hit the icon right now to subscribe. It matters. It really helps us to reach more people like you who might be interested in things here in the Lafayette area, like rezoning from agricultural to select agricultural. This one might be a little controversial, maybe not, but now that the Purdue school year is winding down, their finals wrapped up over the weekend. Purdue University is looking forward to a long weekend of commencements Thursday through Sunday this coming weekend, 10 different sessions, all in Elliott Hall of Music. So the Purdue school year is basically at an end. West Lafayette is changing how they're going to manage parking in some select areas of West Lafayette around the Purdue area. So they're looking at areas near Wabash Landing. They're looking at what has typically been called the island, that is between the academic campus and the residential campus over on the west side, what we call the island. They're looking towards the south side around the Discovery Park District and the airport. So what they're going to do is they're going to rip out a bunch of signs that say things like, parking 1 hour only, 2 hours only, whatever it might be. And they're going to go to metered parking using the Park mobile app, which is an app where, you see the little sign and you log on with your phone and say, I'm parking here for so long, and you make the payment. They're already doing this in some spaces around Purdue, so it's already a known quantity for a lot of people. It's going to start in early June. 476 on-street spaces along Airport Road and Mitch Daniels Boulevard, State Road 26, as we've traditionally known it, and at Wabash Landing. And then another 467 spaces, the spaces near Purdue, will go into the metered program later in the summer. And according to West Lafayette's city ordinance, the parking fees are going to be no less than $1 an hour and no more than $3 an hour. So I don't think that is an onerous amount to help manage parking in an area that has an understandable, not dearth of parking, but parking is tight in a college campus. It's just the nature of the beast, right? Absolutely. And next, and while I'm loading up next, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss a single video that we post here on the Lafayette Reel. Some weeks I actually manage to get videos up almost every day, but definitely no less than a few a week, I would say. About all sorts of things here in the Lafayette area. Fun things to do, development information like we're talking about, fun home tours, new builds, that sort of thing. So we're going to file this next one in the category of good news. We know that Lafayette is the home of many railroad tracks. And several decades ago, the city and the railroads worked to divert the trains through corridors in town that reduced the amount of stops that were required as trains passed. But there are still not zero crossings in the area by any means. And we know that railroad crossings of all things in the street tend to get rough much sooner than the streets itself. There is some great news here. Norfolk Southern is going to repair a few railroad crossings here in the Lafayette area that desperately need it. And they're some of the highest traffic areas that still have railroad crossings. On 9th Street near Armstrong Park, number 1, it's going to take them 4 days. That intersection will be closed May 19th to May 23rd to repair the at-grade railroad crossing there. Next up, from May 27th to May 30th, we'll be closing Concord Road between Doherty Drive and Olympia Drive. And finally, June 2nd to June 4th, the railroad crossing will close on South 18th between Brady Lane and Normandy Drive. So in those windows, May 19th to 23rd, May 27th to 30th, and June 2nd to 4th, if you regularly cross those railroad crossings, plan on having a backup route ready to go. It's some desperately needed work. It'll be painful for a couple of days while we deal with some street closures, but thankfully, Norfolk Southern is going to get those crossings back up to speed. And I don't have a count, I didn't research this, a count of the number of at-grade railroad crossings that are left in the area on majorly trafficked streets. But it is not many, and certainly these three are, I know, three of the most highly trafficked, most common ones that people deal with. So just doing those three alone is going to help a lot. And hopefully the ones that are left will get some attention after that. That wraps that up. It is May 12th, which means that real estate data for the previous month has locked. Jeff, what the heck does that mean? Well, real estate data, sales data, how our market is performing is a little bit of a trailing indicator. We're always looking back in time. And when the data source that I use, which comes from the Indiana Association of Realtors, has to choose some date from which to pull the data, and that date is on or about the 8th of the month. And why is that? Well, about the 8th of the month, some large percentage, and I actually talked to their data scientist about this once, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but a very large percentage, in the high 90s, if not 99%, of transactions are closed and have and have the data uploaded by the 8th. But there's always going to be a few that trickle in. So that's why I say it's May 12th. We've got the data looking back for the month of April. And I just kind of wanted to zip through a little bit of this data to give you some context and some feeling for, not feeling, but well, I guess maybe feeling, because we're going to look at the raw data, and I'm going to talk to you about what the raw data is telling us story-wise about the real estate and housing market here in the Greater Lafayette area. And the data that we're looking at is for all of Tippecanoe County. And when you zoom in, you can tell slightly different stories in Lafayette and West Lafayette and the West Lafayette School Corporation, but they are all similar in trend. So we're going to use Tippecanoe County. And the first piece of data that I want to look at is average daily inventory. And this is the average number of homes that are for sale on any given day. And the story that this number tells is basically, what kind of market are we looking at? Is this a seller's market where you, Mr. Seller, can go put your house on the market, and Mrs. Seller, you can get whatever you want to ask for it within reason, or within what the banks will, provide loans for? Is it a buyer's market where the sellers have to wait for a buyer to come along and the buyer has strength and can negotiate the price down? Or is it a balanced market right in between those two? And average daily inventory really kind of tells that story. And let's look at that number, and I'll explain to you why and how it tells that story. So here we go. This is the 12-month look back at average daily inventory, and we'll see up here in the header, for April, it was 204. Down here, 204. A year ago, it was 129. So we're not quite double. That would have been 258. But 204 is certainly a pretty great advance on a year over year. And then month over month, back in March, we were at 184. And if we track this back to our low point over the last, in 2025, we'll see the low point was indeed last month. And if we track the low point back over the 12 months, we'll see that it was last May. It has been steadily growing. There's a little bit of decline here in the winter, and it's starting to pick back up. But why, Jeff, does the inventory tell a story about what kind of market that it is? Well, based on the historic numbers, we can say that about 300 homes for sale on any given day is what equals a balanced market. If you have less houses than that for sale, it is a seller's market. The sellers have the upper hand in their negotiations. If it is above 300, it is a buyer's market. The buyers have the upper hand in negotiation. It has been a seller's market in Tippecanoe County, and quite frankly, for a great deal of the country, not 100%, but a great deal of the country for a very, very, very long time. Trending up north of 200 is a sign of moving back towards a balanced market. Now, we are still a third off of a balanced market. And will we reach 300? I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility this summer that we manage to get to 300. I don't perhaps think it will be for reasons that we would like it to be. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market, and in the market in general, in the consumer market. And I'm talking durable goods. I'm talking consumer goods. I'm talking imports from China or anywhere else in the world. There's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market. And what do markets like? They like certainty, and we don't have that right now. We're in a time of dynamic, perhaps even volatile change day to day. We won't spend too much time looking at this number, but the next number is total new listings. And this is how many new listings come on the market monthly by date. And the story that I want to tell here with this data is, again, that of a market moving up away from a seller's market towards the range of a neutral market. And we'll see that this month it was 228. We have a 13% increase month over month, but more importantly, a 9%, so almost a 10% increase year over year. So we can see this trend line. It dipped down in December. If you've watched me at all, you know that I say that the real estate market can be pegged to the temperature outside. That is no surprise that December, January, February are the low points in any chart that we look at in the real estate world and the housing market. But we're going up, and look how we jumped up in April to that 228 point. Now, again, is this telling of a healthy market that's going back towards balance, or is this a market that is reacting to the uncertainty in the greater market that's out there? I lean towards it is a little more on that side of uncertainty, but there were also announcements today concerning tariffs and some agreements between the United States and China, and the markets, the stock markets and the bond markets reacted positively towards that news. Now, the stock markets and the bond markets are not the same thing as our pocketbooks. So I'm going to take all of that with a grain of salt, with a look towards the bigger picture. This is just one thing that you've got to weigh to make your own decisions. But all the data that we're going to look at, and we'll pop into this one quickly, total monthly closed sales, and it's got the exact same trend lines going on here. We'll see we had the low point in January, and we've been climbing out, and last month we had 160. We're on top of where the statisticians who put this data together expect this to be. This wide bar down here is the expected range. So we're growing at a rate greater than they perhaps expected us to. 21% month over month. I don't get too excited about the month over month moves. What you want to look at is the longer term moves, and we're at plus 5% year over year. Again, I think that's just another part of the story, but we're going to keep moving on. This one we're going to look at quickly, and then I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the one after this. But again, new pending contracts. Again, it's got that same shape to the graph. We're climbing out. We're heading towards summer. I think May will continue to increase. And so this is the data point that perhaps disputes some of the points that I was just making. Uncertainty in the market. Are we seeing a market moving towards balance, or are we seeing houses come on the market or sit on the market because of other reasons? Well, this is new pending contracts. These are people that made an offer and said, I would like to buy your house. And the seller said, yeah, I'll accept your offer. Now let's go into what a lot of states call the escrow period and do our due diligence. Let's go through and do inspections. Let's do appraisals. And typically about 30 days after the contract goes pending, the actual deal closes. This number is trending in a positive direction. I feel that if the numbers were reacting to the uncertainty in the market, we might see inventory climbing while seeing new pending contracts declining and going down. But we're seeing new pending contracts going up. Again, looking at the statistical changes month over month, 6%, so not giant, but the typical change is only about 4%. We are over the expected range for the year. We're only at minus 2% year over year, so basically flat. This number's kind of been hanging out here, stuck here for quite a while. So I don't know that it tells us the story just yet, but it does exist. Now, the next number or two I want to spend a good deal of more time on. The next one is one of my absolute favorite numbers. And if you've watched any of my real estate videos, any of my home tours even, But market updates, if you've been here for more than just a couple of videos, you've heard me talk about this one. And this is median days on market. So this is the number of days that it takes homes to go from freshly listed to we have now accepted an offer. And it's the median, so it is the halfway point of the data set. So if there are 100 homes, it is number 50. It is not 100, add up 1 through 100 and divide by 100. That's an average. That's a mean. We're talking about a median. It's the halfway point. And the reason I like medians so much is if you're dealing with numbers where you have an excessively large number, you've got a $3 million house and a whole lot of less than $1 million houses, then that $3 million house is going to bring your average up too high. And the inverse of that is true as well. If you've got a $50,000 house, it's an absolute pile of trash that was just for sale, basically for the land. That's going to throw your numbers off the other way. So medians are a good way to look at it. And it was 5 days. So if you put your home for sale on a Monday, you had an accepted offer by Friday in the median. Now that means that if there were 100 homes for sale, 50 of them had accepted offers by 5 days, and the other 50 were longer than 5 days. And we can't define how long past 5 days we're talking about just by looking at the median. But we'll see that it has been going up, and I would go beyond so slightly. It's been going up. Look, we were down here at 5 a year ago, and we hung out there, and then it grew last fall and kind of hung out here in the winter, hitting a peak of 20, almost 3 weeks, 19 on December of last year. But now it's starting to come down. And this is, again, one of those numbers where we're talking about all of Tippecanoe County here. We could zoom in and we would see a slightly faster market momentum, days on market, in West Lafayette. West Lafayette is typically the strongest sub-market here in our area, the fastest moving, the highest demand. So this was ticking up, this was ticking up, this was ticking up. And I was thinking, is this a sign of a move towards normalcy? Or was this just our normal winter malaise magnified by a degree or two? And I wasn't quite certain. I figured, it was likely the winter malaise, but there was a chance. And again, not scary that it was going up. And again, we can see the trend lines that the statisticians put in here. This pink line down here shows that we were following the general trends. We just kind of snuck above it a little bit. And quite frankly, I wouldn't mind if it went up a little bit more from a buyer's perspective, but from a seller's perspective, it's a very, very strong sign that days on market are going back down. And I would guess that that's going to continue to fall through the summer and into the early fall, till about the time that school goes back. There's a little bit of a bump, pause, hiccup in the market, if you will, when people are getting their kids ready to go back to school. So that's days on market, and I think that's the story there tells us that we are indeed still in a healthy market from a demand standpoint. We may not be in a healthy market as far as a balance standpoint. If you're a buyer, you got to be pre-approved. You got to have your favorite local realtor ready to go. If you're looking for a home and you see it come on the market and you don't have your favorite realtor, ready to go, if you're not pre-approved, you are too late. And I don't say that to be salesy. It's just the truth. I have some great friends in the mortgage industry that can get you pre-approved pretty quickly. But by the time you go gather all your documents and get everything done, it's not an instantaneous process. And some of these homes, if it's 5 days and there's 100 of them sold, that means that 50 of them went in less than 5 days, which some of them went day of. So if you're interested in buying here in Tippecanoe County, you got to be ready to go, which means hiring a realtor to look after your interests. And the entire reason that this channel exists, the entire reason is because I'm a realtor and I love home here in the Lafayette area, and I'd love to help you find home here in the Lafayette area. So if you're interested in home here in the Greater Lafayette area, go to the LafayetteReal.com/YouTube and fill out the form and let me know how I can help you find home here. We're going to look at just a couple more data points before we move on from this. We need to see prices because we've been talking a little more ephemeral, but where the rubber meets the road. Hey, Jeff, how much am I going to have to pay? Well, we're going to talk about median sales price. And median sales price is a proxy and a stand-in for the strength of the market overall, for what you're going to have to bring to the table money-wise, whether you're paying cash and going to put cash on the table for the entire purchase price, or whether you're going to need to put down a down payment if you're going conventional up to 20%, if you're going FHA 3.5%, if you're going USDA 0%. Yes, you heard me, 0%. And then there are also a number of programs to help with down payments that can get you below 3%, get you down to 2%, 1%, even 1%. But this is a good proxy, and also just like the realist number that we can talk about is price. And the median sales price for Tippecanoe County in April of 2025 was $310,000. We'll come over here on the graph and check it out over here. And we are up we're down minus 4% month over month, but up 11% year over year. So real estate goes up in value. Your investment in your house almost always goes up. Now, it is not a stock. It's not something that you're going to cash out and live off of if you retire. Now, you can take some money out of your house and figure out ways, but I don't sell it. I'm not trying to sell real estate as an investment in that way. I'm just trying to talk about how your investment in your home grows over time, and how buying, what's the old joke, if only I had bought yesterday, or I'm getting this a little wrong, but the best time to buy was, last year. The next best time to buy is right now, and that's because prices are going to continue to appreciate. Prices are going to go up. So if you're looking to get into the market, you're going to have to bring more and more to the table. But as soon as you get in the market, then your personal wealth goes up. That's just the way it is. Now, again, what's the old one? Past performance is no guarantee of future returns. Of course not. This is not investment advice. This is just some thoughts and comments on the real estate industry that I love and work in every day. But up 11% year over year. We're definitely heading back up in the trend direction that the statisticians expect, and you'll see that we are over the expected range the statisticians expected. They expected 242 to 268, and we hit 310. So again, just to make the numbers easy, if there are 100 houses sold that had accepted offers, 50 of them sold at 310,000 or below, and the other 50 sold for 310,000 or more. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that single-family starter homes are more expensive than ever. There is a pretty good change in the story of the market at about the $600,000 mark. So $0 to $600,000 kind of tells one story, and $600,000 and up tells another story. But there's compression happening there, and those stories are eventually going to meet in the middle if these trend lines continue the way they do. And then the final sales price number that I want to look at is sales price as percent of listing price. What? What'd you just say, Jeff? You list your house for $300,000. Do you accept an offer? Does the offer that you get come in at full price at $300,000? Does it go over asking? Does it come in at $310,000? Does it come in under asking at $250,000? That's what this means. And the number for April, 98.5%. And we'll see that we're up 1% month over month, down 1% year over year. But here is the 100% mark. That's this line straight across here. But look at the scale. Look at the scale over here on the y-axis. 93% down at the low point, 102% at the high point. And the entire line exists between about 99, get a tooltip to hide, 99.2% at the high. Now, maybe this month is the high. Yep, 99.2% and 96.6%. So no more than 3.4% off of full asking price. All that is somebody asking for some concessions to help pay closing fees, to help pay down payment, to bring some cash to the table out of the asset, the house, because the sellers hold the asset. So they have more access to an asset that can be turned into liquidity at the closing table. So in one way it is the sellers giving up a little bit of money, but in other ways it's the buyers really buying into paying a little bit of extra interest over the years, because that is, most of the time getting financed. And there's a lot of ways that you can look at it, and it really does matter, piece by piece, whether you're talking about this kind of credit or that kind of credit. So you can't paint the story across the board with the same brush. But regardless of that, when people go and see, oh, there's a $300,000 house, I want to make a $250,000 offer, or I'm going to make the math easy, $240,000 offer. That's $60,000 off. That's 20% below the asking price. Look at the number here. Here's 100%. This graph doesn't even go down that far. So no, we're not going to make a 20% off of list price offer. Now, of course, there are the occasional sellers who ask some crazy amount, but they are the exception to the rule. And when you do find them, sometimes they're just not going to be willing to negotiate, and they just pull their house back off the market. So again, if you're out in the market and you're a seller, you're going to get what you ask for if you have listened to your qualified realtor who knows and is an expert at pricing homes. And that is what we do, and that is what we know. Now, if you just go and throw a dart at a dartboard to pick your price, you maybe not get, because again, 100%, if you take 100 homes that are sold, 50% of them sold at 98.5% or better of asking price, and 50 of them sold at 98.5% or less. So that means that some are selling for north of 100%, and then some of them are selling for less than the average, or the average of 98.5%. So that's a story about the housing market, the real estate market here in Tippecanoe County through the end of April 2025. What do you think? Leave a comment in the chat, or if you're watching this later, leave a comment down below. Are you thinking about selling? Are you thinking about buying? Do you think the market's going to change over the next year? Is it going to get worse? Is it going to get better? I think I've given you my thoughts as we've gone along, and I would love to hear yours. But with that, we're going to wrap up, and until next week, we will don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss a minute of all the content that we put out here on the Lafayette Reel. And we will see you next Monday for our next show. Thanks so much, guys, and have a great week.